In the grim darkness of the far future, there exists a fate more terrifying than death itself. Picture this. You are a warrior, broken beyond all recognition, your body shattered in service to powers beyond mortal comprehension. But death does not come. Instead, you are sealed within a walking tomb of corroded metal and diseased flesh, your consciousness bound to a machine that will never let you rest. For most warriors of the Adeptus Astartes, this would be a horror beyond measure. But for the Death Guard, the corrupted sons of Mortarion who have pledged themselves to Nurgle, the plague god, this existence represents something else entirely. It is not torture, it is acceptance. It is the embodiment of a philosophy that celebrates decay as the ultimate truth of the universe. The Dreadnought, in its original conception, was meant to be the highest honor a space marine could receive. When a warrior's body was destroyed, but their spirit remained unbroken, they could be interred within an armored sarcophagus, their consciousness linked to a towering war machine bristling with devastating weaponry. Loyalist chapters revered these ancient warriors, treating them as living relics whose wisdom spanned centuries, even millennia. They were awoken only for the most critical battles, then returned to slumber in sacred halls where their brothers could seek their counsel. This was the dream, the promise of eternal service to the Emperor even beyond the threshold of death. But for the traitor legions who fell during the Horus Heresy, Dreadnought internment became something altogether different. Without the technology and resources of the Imperium, without the sacred rites and stasis systems that protected the consciousness within, these ancient war machines became prisons of torment. The warriors sealed inside slowly went mad from isolation and pain, their minds fragmenting over centuries of half-aware existence. The warp's corrupting influence seeped into the very machinery that sustained them, and what emerged were hellbrutes, grotesque fusions of demon, machine, and tortured flesh. Among Chaos Space Marines, internment in a Dreadnought chassis became not an honor, but a punishment, a fate worse than death itself, reserved for those who had failed their lords or stood in opposition to their warband's ambitions. Yet the Death Guard stand apart from their fallen brothers in this, as in all things. When a plague marine falls in battle, his body reduced to little more than suppurating organs and shattered bone, and the decision is made to seal him within a hellbrute chassis. He does not scream in anguish at this fate. He does not rage against the inevitable fusion of his flesh with corrupted steel. Instead, there is acceptance. There is even a twisted form of peace. For the Death Guard understand what so many others fail to grasp. They have embraced the fundamental truth that Nurgle teaches to all his children. Decay is not the end. It is transformation. It is rebirth. It is the natural order of all things, and to resist it is the only true madness. To understand why Death Guard Dreadnoughts embrace their fate of eternal decay, we must first understand the journey that brought them to this point. We must delve into the philosophy of Nurgle himself, the Chaos God who promises relief from suffering through acceptance of the inevitable. We must explore how the Death Guard's transformation from the Emperor's most resilient legion into plague-ridden harbingers of pestilence fundamentally changed their relationship with concepts like death, pain, and immortality. And we must examine how the unique nature of Nurgle's gifts creates an experience of Dreadnought internment that, while still horrifying to outside observers, represents something the Death Guard have learned to not merely endure, but to celebrate as part of their eternal service to Grandfather Nurgle. The Death Guard. From resilience to rot. Before we can understand the mindset of a Death Guard hellbrute, we must understand the legion that creates them. The Death Guard were not always the bloated, pestilent horrors that march across battlefields today, spreading disease with every labored breath. There was a time when they stood among the most honored of the Emperor's Space Marine legions, renowned not for their corruption, but for their incredible resilience and unshakable determination. Originally known as the Dusk Raiders, the 14th Legion specialized in warfare that would break lesser forces. They excelled in toxic environments, in grinding attritional campaigns, in situations where victory came not through brilliance or speed, but through the simple ability to endure when all others would falter. When they were reunited with their Primarch Mortarion, a grim figure raised on the poisonous death world of Barbarous, the Legion's character solidified even further. Mortarion had spent his formative years fighting to free the human population of his world from the tyrannical overlords who dwelt in the toxic upper reaches of the planet's mountains. He had pushed himself to the very limits of endurance, ascending higher into the deadly atmosphere than any normal human could survive, teaching himself to resist poisons that would kill even modified warriors. When he took command of his legion and renamed them the Death Guard, he instilled in them his own philosophy of warfare: victory through resilience, success through endurance. The ability to march through hell itself and emerge on the other side still ready to fight. The Death Guard became known for their methodical approach to war. They did not rely on flashy tactics or brilliant maneuvers. They advanced with inexorable patience, weathering whatever the enemy could throw at them, waiting for their opponents to exhaust themselves before striking the killing blow. They were the center of any battle line, the unbreakable core that other forces could rely upon. Their weapons were practical and functional rather than ornate. Their armor bore the marks of countless battles. They took pride not in glory, but in getting the job done, no matter how long it took, no matter what horrors they had to endure to achieve victory. This was the essence of the Death Guard: patient, resilient, unstoppable. But this very resilience, this incredible capacity to endure, would become their greatest curse during the Horus Heresy. When Mortarion sided with War Master Horus against the Emperor, when the Death Guard fleet made its fateful journey through the warp toward the Siege of Terror, they believed their endurance would see them through any challenge. They were wrong. The fleet became becalmed in the Imperium, trapped in the impossible currents of the warp. And then came the plagues. The Destroyer Plague, sent by Nurgle, swept through every vessel in the Death Guard fleet. It was unlike any disease they had ever encountered, a supernatural pestilence that made a mockery of their legendary resistance to toxins and contagions. The Death Guard watched in horror as their bodies began to fail them in ways they had never imagined possible. Their transhuman physiology, designed to resist almost any injury or disease, instead became their worst enemy. They could not die. Their enhanced biology kept them alive even as the plague ravaged their flesh, bloating their bodies, covering them in suppurating sores, transforming them into walking hives of corruption. They grew sicker with every passing moment, their incredible constitution ensuring that they remained conscious through every agonizing stage of their transformation. The pain was beyond anything they had been designed to withstand. The suffering was absolute, and there was no escape, no relief, no hope of recovery. They were trapped in their own bodies, prisoners to their own resilience, enduring a hell that would have killed normal humans instantly, but which kept them alive in endless torment. Mortarion himself suffered more than any of his sons. The Primarch, who had spent his life building up resistance to every poison, who had climbed mountains through toxic gases that would melt unprotected flesh, found himself utterly helpless against this supernatural plague. He endured agonies that dwarfed anything he had experienced during his harshest training. And finally, unable to bear any more, Mortarion did something he had sworn never to do. He called out for deliverance. He offered his soul and the souls of all his sons to whoever would end their suffering. The answer came not from the Emperor who had once saved him on Barbarous, but from a very different power. Nurgle, the plague god, the Lord of Decay, reached out and claimed the Death Guard for his own. The transformation was instantaneous and total. The pain vanished, not because the diseases left their bodies, but because Nurgle granted them immunity to all suffering. The Death Guard's bodies continued to rot, continued to decay, but they no longer felt pain from these afflictions. More than that, they began to see their corruption differently. What had been a curse became a gift. The plagues that ravaged their flesh were no longer sources of agony, but marks of Nurgle's favor. They had been reborn as plague marines, eternal servants of the grandfather of disease, and in exchange for their souls, they had received something they never expected: freedom from the fear of death itself. They were already dying, would be dying forever, locked in a state of perpetual decay. But in that decay, they found a twisted form of peace. They had accepted the inevitable, and in acceptance found liberation. This transformation fundamentally altered how the Death Guard viewed existence itself. They had learned through unbearable suffering that resistance was futile, that fighting against the natural process of decay only magnified the torment. When they stopped resisting, when they embraced what was happening to them, they found relief. This became the core of their new philosophy, a belief system that would define them for the 10,000 years that followed. Death and decay were not enemies to be fought, but natural processes to be accepted and even celebrated. Nurgle taught them that rot was not the end, but rather the beginning of something new. From decay came rebirth. From endings came new beginnings. And those who accepted this truth, who stopped fearing death and started embracing it, would know a form of immortality that the Emperor's servants could never comprehend. Understanding Nurgle, the paradox of the plague. God. To truly grasp why Death Guard Dreadnoughts embrace their fate, we must understand the being they serve. Nurgle is perhaps the most paradoxical of all the Chaos Gods, embodying contradictions that would break mortal minds attempting to reconcile them. He is the god of death and decay, of disease and despair, of everything that withers and rots and falls apart. Yet he is also the god of life and rebirth, of growth and resilience, of the eternal cycle that ensures nothing ever truly ends. He is the Lord of Decay, whose very existence proves that decay is not finality, but transformation. He spreads plagues that kill billions, yet he does so with genuine affection for his victims, viewing disease as a gift rather than a curse. He is called Grandfather Nurgle, a term of endearment from his followers who see him as a loving patriarch rather than a malevolent deity. Nurgle understands something that the other Chaos Gods do not, or perhaps something they know but choose to ignore. He comprehends that the universe is not static, but constantly changing, that all things must eventually decay and fall apart, but that from this decay comes the opportunity for new life to emerge. He sees the cycle entire, not just individual stages of it. Death leads to decomposition. Decomposition enriches the soil. Enriched soil allows new growth. New growth eventually reaches maturity and then begins to decline, and the cycle continues forever. There is no true ending, only transformation from one state to another. This understanding makes Nurgle the most patient of the Chaos Gods, content to let things unfold at their natural pace, knowing that eventually all will return to his embrace. For mortals, Nurgle offers something none of the other dark gods can truly provide: relief from the fear of death. Horn promises glory in battle, but you can still die and be forgotten. Tzeentch offers knowledge and change, but at the cost of your sanity and stable form. Slaanesh provides sensations beyond imagination, but they come with an emptiness that can never be filled. But Nurgle offers acceptance. He offers the understanding that death is not the end, that decay is natural and even beautiful in its own way, that the suffering brought by disease is temporary and can be transformed into something else entirely. When you pledge yourself to Nurgle, when you accept his gifts, you gain immunity to the pain those diseases cause. You continue to rot, continue to decay, but you no longer suffer from it. More than that, you begin to see the beauty in it, the perfection in the cycle, the joy in being part of something eternal. This is why Nurgle's followers often appear cheerful despite their horrific appearance. They are bloated with disease, covered in open sores that weep pus and blood, infested with parasites and carrion insects, yet they laugh and sing as they march to war. They have accepted their condition. They have stopped fighting against it. And in that acceptance, they have found a kind of peace that those who still cling to life and fear death can never know. They view the plagues they carry not as afflictions, but as blessings to be shared. When they infect others, they genuinely believe they are improving those people's lives, freeing them from the tyranny of fearing death, bringing them into Nurgle's garden, where decay and rebirth dance together in eternal harmony. Nurgle's realm in the Warp reflects this philosophy perfectly. It is described as a garden, a vast and impossible landscape of rotting vegetation and thriving disease. It is simultaneously the most beautiful and most horrific place imaginable. Flowers bloom in impossible colors, but their petals are made of diseased flesh. Trees tower into the sky, but their bark weeps infectious sap, and their fruits are tumors filled with virulent plagues. Rivers flow through the landscape, but they carry not water, but liquid rot, thick with bacteria and parasites. Insects the size of houses buzz through the air, beautiful in their own way despite being made of decay and corruption. This is Nurgle's vision of paradise, life and death so intermingled that they become indistinguishable from each other, a place where everything is always dying and always being reborn simultaneously. The philosophy Nurgle embodies appeals most strongly to those in desperate situations, the sick, the starving, the hopeless, those facing inevitable death with no chance of escape. In their darkest moment, when all other gods remain silent, Nurgle whispers an offer: acceptance in exchange for peace. Stop fighting the inevitable. Embrace what is happening to you. Let go of your fear and pain, and in return, I will make it all bearable. I will give you the strength to endure what you thought unendurable. I will transform your suffering into something you can live with, literally and eternally. This is not a false promise. Nurgle delivers on what he offers. The cost is merely your soul, your humanity, and your existence as you once knew it. But for those who have nothing left to lose, this seems a reasonable exchange. The Death Guard understood this better than most because they lived through it. They experienced the transition from agonizing suffering to accepting peace. They felt the moment when Nurgle's gifts took hold and the pain disappeared. They learned firsthand that resisting decay only magnified their torment, while accepting it brought relief. This lesson was seared into their collective consciousness, becoming the foundation of their new identity. They had discovered a truth that the Imperium desperately tried to deny, that decay was inevitable, that fighting against it was futile, and that the only way to truly survive was to embrace it completely. This understanding would inform every aspect of their existence going forward, including how they viewed the fate of their warriors interred within Dreadnought chassis. The horror of the Hellbrute. Before we can understand why Death Guard Hellbrutes are different, we must first understand the baseline horror of what a Hellbrute actually is. In the 10,000 years since the Horus Heresy, the traitor legions have lost much of the technology and knowledge that the Imperium retained. The ability to properly construct and maintain Dreadnought chassis is one of those lost arts. The few Contemptor-pattern Dreadnoughts that remain from the Heresy era are prized beyond measure, carefully maintained by the handful of tech adepts and warpsmiths who still understand their complex systems. Those fortunate or powerful enough to be interred in a Contemptor do not suffer the degradation that afflicts lesser patterns. But for the vast majority of Chaos Space Marines who face internment, the fate that awaits them is the Hellbrute. A Hellbrute is what happens when a Dreadnought chassis is built without the proper safeguards, when it is infused with the corrupt energies of the Warp, when the sarcophagus that houses the warrior's remains is designed not to preserve, but to parasitically bond with its occupant. The process of creating a Hellbrute is nightmarish from the very beginning. A warrior is grievously wounded, his body shattered beyond even the advanced healing capabilities of heretic Astartes apothecaries. But instead of being granted a merciful death. He is selected for internment. His broken body is stripped of unnecessary flesh, organs are removed or rearranged, limbs are severed. What remains of him, little more than a torso, head, and essential organs, is placed within the sarcophagus. And then the bonding begins. The sarcophagus itself is alive in a way that no machine should be. Tentacles of corrupted metal and mutated flesh burrow into the warrior's body, piercing deep into his nervous system, wrapping around his brain and spinal cord. They do not simply connect to him, they begin to merge with him. Over time, measured in days or weeks or months, depending on the individual, the distinction between the warrior's flesh and the machine becomes meaningless. His organs fuse with the mechanisms that sustain them. His neural pathways intertwine with the circuitry that connects him to the Hellbrute's weapons and sensors. His very consciousness becomes distributed throughout the chassis, no longer centralized in his biological brain, but spread thin across a hybrid network of flesh and steel. This fusion is agonizing beyond description. Every moment of it is conscious, felt in full detail as organic tissue melds with inorganic mechanisms. The pain is so intense that it drives most occupants mad within hours of internment. Their screams echo through the sarcophagus, transmitted through the Hellbrute's vox speakers as distorted howls of anguish. Even after the initial fusion is complete, the torment continues. The Hellbrute's body is wrong in ways that defy explanation. It is too big, too strong, too alien. The occupant can feel every component, is aware of every joint and actuator and weapon system, but cannot fully control them. The Hellbrute moves in ways that seem wrong, acts on impulses that do not originate from the occupant's conscious mind. It is as if they are sharing their body with something else, something that hates them and wants to hurt them and everyone around them. Between battles, when the Hellbrute is not needed, it is chained down like a rabid animal. The sarcophagus is sometimes removed from the chassis entirely, placed in secure storage where it cannot harm itself or others. The warrior inside is trapped in darkness, unable to move, unable to see or hear anything beyond the confines of his prison. Time loses all meaning in this sensory deprivation. Hours feel like years. Days become eternities. The warrior's mind, already damaged by the fusion process and the traumas of battle, continues to deteriorate. Memories fragment and scatter. Identity erodes. Madness grows like a cancer, feeding on the isolation and helplessness, until there is little left of the warrior who was first interred. What remains is something that screams when awakened, that lashes out at friend and foe alike, that knows only rage and pain and the desperate desire for it all to end. This is why internment in a Hellbrute is viewed as a punishment among most Chaos Space Marine warbands. It is not an honor bestowed on heroes, but a fate inflicted on those who have displeased their lord, who have failed in critical missions, who have dared to oppose their warband's plans. Some warbands use it as a threat to maintain discipline. Fail me, and you will be interred. Betray me, and you will spend eternity in a Hellbrute chassis. Others simply view it as a practical solution to the problem of grievously wounded warriors. The Marine is already dying, his body too damaged to be saved. Why waste perfectly good genetic material when it can be put to use in a Hellbrute? The warrior's feelings on the matter are irrelevant. He will serve whether he wants to or not, and his suffering will fuel his rage in battle, making him an even more effective weapon. The Thousand Sons take this cruelty to even greater extremes. Unable to create new Hellbrutes from their own legion due to the rubric that turned most of them into mindless dust-filled armor, they resort to deception. They lure warriors from other legions and warbands with promises of forbidden knowledge and immense power. These warriors undergo trials that they believe are tests of worthiness, rituals that they think are binding them to sources of sorcerous strength. In reality, each trial is attaching their soul to a Hellbrute's systems, preparing them for internment. When the deception is finally revealed, when they realize what is about to happen to them, it is far too late. They are flensed with warp flame, their bodies reduced to burnt masses of organs and nerves, and then placed still conscious and aware into amniotic sacs that are inserted into waiting Hellbrute chassis. The 1,000 suns keep these Hellbrutes chained between battles, and the pilot's screams of betrayal and anguish echo through the holds of their vessels, a constant reminder of the price others pay for the 1,000 suns' continued existence. For most Chaos Space Marines, this is the fate that awaits them if they are selected for Dreadnought internment. Madness, agony, isolation, and the gradual dissolution of everything they once were. It is a fate to be avoided at all costs, something even the most battle-hardened warriors fear more than death itself. Better to die cleanly in combat, to have their gene seed harvested for future generations, than to face an eternity trapped within a Hellbrute chassis. This terror is rational, justified by the countless examples of Hellbrutes who have devolved into little more than screaming engines of destruction, their original personalities completely subsumed by madness and rage. The Death Guard exception. And yet, when a Death Guard warrior is selected for internment within a Hellbrute chassis, his response is fundamentally different from warriors of other legions. This is not to say that the process is pleasant or that the Death Guard welcome it with open arms. The fusion of flesh with machine is still agonizing, the isolation between battles is still maddening, and the gradual transformation into something that is neither fully marine nor fully machine is still horrific to contemplate. But the Death Guard possess something that other traitor legions lack, a philosophical framework that allows them to process and accept this transformation. They have already experienced something similar once before, when Nurgle claimed them and transformed them from the Emperor's warriors into Plague Marines. They know what it means to have their flesh corrupted and changed against their will. They understand how to find peace within corruption. The Death Guard's unique relationship with Dreadnought internment stems from several interconnected factors, all rooted in their nature as Nurgle's chosen. First and most important is the immunity to pain that Nurgle grants all his followers. When a Death Guard warrior is placed within a Hellbrute chassis, when the parasitic systems begin to burrow into his flesh and fuse with his nervous system, he does not experience the same level of agony that would drive warriors of other legions insane. He feels the process happening, is aware of every stage of the transformation, but the pain is muted, distant, filtered through Nurgle's gifts into something bearable. It is uncomfortable, certainly, deeply unsettling in ways that have nothing to do with physical sensation, but it is not the soul-breaking torture that it would be for an unprotected warrior. This immunity extends to the ongoing existence within the Hellbrute as well. The constant wrongness of the fused form, the perpetual low-level discomfort of being distributed across both organic and mechanical systems, the sensory chaos of processing input from weapons and sensors that were never meant for human nervous systems. All of this would normally contribute to the rapid psychological deterioration of a Hellbrute's pilot. But for the Death Guard, these sensations are just another form of decay, another stage in the endless cycle of transformation that Nurgle represents. They have already lived for thousands of years, with bodies that are constantly rotting and regenerating, with flesh that is home to countless diseases and parasites, with forms that bear little resemblance to what they once were. Adding mechanical components to this mix is simply another transformation, another step in their eternal journey of decay. The second crucial factor is patience, one of the core virtues that defined the Death Guard even before their fall to chaos. The Legion has always excelled at endurance, at weathering situations that would break other forces, at methodically grinding down opposition over extended campaigns. This patience was instilled in them by Mortarion and refined through countless wars of attrition. When a Death Guard warrior is interred within a Hellbrute, this patience becomes his greatest asset. The isolation between battles, the endless waiting in darkness, the slow dissolution of identity that drives other pilots mad. the Death Guard are uniquely equipped to endure these trials. They do not frantically struggle against their confinement or rage at their helplessness. Instead, they wait with the same methodical patience they brought to siege warfare, knowing that eventually they will be awoken, that eventually they will fight again, and that until then, there is no point in wasting energy on resistance. Historical records of the Death Guard mention that even before their corruption, they made extensive use of Dreadnoughts and Terminators as part of their tactical doctrine. The Legion understood the value of having heavily armed units that could provide fire support and assault capability to their infantry formations. They were comfortable working alongside these war machines, respected the warriors interred within them, and saw them as natural extensions of the Legion's fighting strength. This familiarity meant that Death Guard warriors who faced potential internment were not approaching an unknown fate, but rather transitioning to a role they already understood and valued. They had fought beside Dreadnoughts for decades or centuries. They knew what these machines were capable of. The prospect of becoming one was not alien or terrifying, but rather a natural progression of their service. The third, and perhaps most important factor, is the Death Guard's philosophical acceptance of transformation through decay. They have internalized Nurgle's teachings about the cycle of death and rebirth so completely that they no longer see their original forms as sacred or worth preserving. A Death Guard warrior knows that his flesh is temporary, that it will rot and change and eventually be replaced by something new. He has watched this happen to his own body countless times over the millennia, seen his organs fail and regenerate, felt his bones break and heal stronger, observed his skin slough off and regrow in new configurations. The idea of his flesh fusing with machine, of his consciousness being distributed across a hybrid form, is not a violation of his identity, but rather another stage in the endless transformation that Nurgle promises to all his children. This philosophical framework allows Death Guard Hellbrutes to maintain their sanity far longer than pilots from other legions. Where an Emperor's Children warrior would go mad from the loss of physical sensation, where a World Eater would destroy himself in frenzied rage at his confinement, where a Black Legion warrior would succumb to bitterness and despair, the Death Guard pilot simply accepts what has happened and continues to serve. He does not fight against the transformation. He does not mourn what he has lost. He recognizes this as another of Grandfather Nurgle's gifts, an opportunity to continue serving the Legion in a new form, to spread the blessings of decay across more battlefields, to endure when others would have fallen. This is not to say that Death Guard Hellbrutes are immune to all negative effects of their transformation. Over time, even they begin to change in ways that would disturb outside observers. Their personalities shift, becoming more focused, more single-minded, more attuned to the rhythms of decay that permeate their existence. They develop strange obsessions, cataloging diseases they encounter, counting the decomposition rates of corpses on battlefields, speaking in riddles about the cycle of rebirth that only other Death Guard truly understand. But these changes are not the descent into shrieking madness that characterizes Hellbrutes from other legions. They are adaptations, transformations, the natural result of existing in a state of perpetual decay while maintaining consciousness. The Death Guard pilot remains himself, or at least remains enough of himself to function as part of the Legion's war machine. The process of internment. When a Death Guard warrior falls in battle with wounds so severe that even his enhanced physiology and Nurgle's gifts cannot keep him fighting, the decision must be made whether to grant him final death or to prepare him for internment within a Hellbrute chassis. This decision is not made lightly or arbitrarily. The Death Guard may view Dreadnought internment more favorably than other legions, but they still recognize it as a significant transformation that fundamentally alters the nature of the warrior's existence. The choice typically falls to the warband's leadership, often in consultation with the plague surgeons, who maintain what passes for medical care among the corrupted Marines. They evaluate not just whether the warrior can be saved through internment, but whether he should be, whether his service record justifies the resources and effort required, whether his temperament and mindset make him suitable for the unique challenges of existing as a Hellbrute. Unlike other Chaos warbands, who might use Hellbrute internment as punishment, the Death Guard employ it as a form of reward for particularly distinguished service. A warrior who has proven his dedication to Nurgle's cause through centuries of faithful service, who has spread the Grandfather's gifts to countless worlds, who has exemplified the virtues of endurance and acceptance that define the Legion. Such a warrior is deemed worthy of this transformation. The fact that his body has finally failed him, that he has been broken beyond conventional repair, is seen not as a failure, but as evidence of his commitment. He fought until there was literally nothing left to fight with. Such dedication deserves recognition, and internment allows him to continue serving when death would end his contribution to the Legion's war. The Death Guard's plague surgeons, themselves grotesque amalgamations of twisted medical knowledge and demonic corruption, prepare the warrior's body with as much care as their degraded facilities allow. The damaged Marine is brought to whatever passes for an apothecarian in the warband's fleet or fortress, a chamber thick with the stench of rot and alive with clouds of plague flies. His brothers gather to witness the procedure if space permits, offering prayers to Nurgle and chanting the counting songs that the plague god so loves. The atmosphere is not one of mourning or horror, but of solemn celebration. Their brother is being granted a great honor, an opportunity to serve Grandfather Nurgle in a new and powerful way. That this honor comes at the cost of his human form is irrelevant. They lost their human forms 10,000 years ago. The surgical procedure itself is brutal and efficient in equal measure. The plague surgeons remove what remains of the warrior's limbs, sever connections to organs that are too damaged to salvage, cut away flesh that serves no purpose within the sarcophagus. Throughout this process, the warrior remains conscious. Nurgle's gifts ensure that he feels no pain from the cutting and tearing, but he is aware of everything happening to him. He watches as his arms are removed, as his legs are taken, as pieces of himself are cast aside like broken tools. This awareness is intentional, even necessary. The warrior must understand what is happening, must consciously choose to accept this transformation, rather than having it inflicted upon him against his will. He is given opportunities to refuse, to request final death instead. But Death Guard warriors rarely take this option. They have already accepted so much worse. Why balk now at this final transformation? When the preparations are complete, when the warrior has been reduced to the essential components that the Hellbrute requires, he is placed within the sarcophagus. The chamber is filled with amniotic fluids that are more toxic waste than life-sustaining liquid, thick with bacteria and microorganisms that would kill normal humans instantly. For the Death Guard warrior, these fluids feel like home, like swimming in the cesspools of Nurgle's garden. The sarcophagus seals around him, and then the bonding process begins. Corrupted neural interfaces burrow into his brain and spinal column, establishing connections that will allow him to control the Hellbrute systems. Mechanical tentacles wrap around his remaining organs, fusing with them, becoming part of his circulatory and respiratory systems. The boundaries between his flesh and the machine begin to blur immediately. What sets the Death Guard internment process apart from that of other legions is the presence of Nurgle's influence throughout. The sarcophagus is not just a mechanical life support system, but a living ecosystem, a miniature version of the plague god's garden. Disease and decay are woven into every component, not as malfunctions to be corrected, but as features to be celebrated. As the warrior's flesh fuses with the machine, it does not simply bond in a sterile mechanical way. Instead, organic growths begin to spread through the Hellbrute's internal systems. Fungus and mold colonize the circuitry. Bacteria form thriving colonies in the coolant systems. The corruption that characterizes all Death Guard warriors extends into their mechanical components, making the Hellbrute itself a vessel for Nurgle's influence. The warrior's consciousness adapts to this new state gradually. At first, the sensory input is overwhelming. He can feel the Hellbrute's senses as extensions of his own senses, but they perceive reality in ways that human senses never could. He can detect temperature gradients with perfect precision, identify chemical compositions through sensors that function as impossibly sophisticated noses, perceive electromagnetic radiation across spectrums that organic eyes cannot see. His awareness extends to every component of the Hellbrute's body. He knows the status of every actuator, every weapon system, every armor plate. It is too much information for a human mind to process, and warriors from other legions often cannot handle this sensory overload. But the Death Guard warrior has spent millennia learning to accept uncomfortable states of being. He does not try to filter or control the information flood. He simply lets it wash over him, gradually learning to pass what he needs from the chaos of input. Over days or weeks, the transformation stabilizes. The warrior's flesh completes its fusion with the sarcophagus. His consciousness settles into its new distributed state. He learns to move the Hellbrute's body, at first clumsily, but with increasing fluidity as his neural pathways adapt to controlling systems that are very different from his original limbs. The plague surgeons monitor this process carefully, not because they fear the warrior will reject the transformation, but because they want to ensure that the fusion is as complete as possible. A properly integrated Death Guard Hellbrute is a devastating weapon, combining the combat experience of a veteran Marine with the firepower and resilience of a war engine. An improperly integrated one is merely another screaming monster, and the Death Guard already have plenty of those. When the transformation is deemed complete, when the warrior has demonstrated his ability to control the Hellbrute with sufficient skill, he is formally recognized by the warband. His brothers gather once more, this time to celebrate rather than witness. They chant his achievements, recount his battles, tell the story of how he earned this honor. The newly created Hellbrute stands among them, towering over the Plague Marines who were once his peers. He has been reborn, transformed from flesh alone into a fusion of decay and machinery. And in the eyes of the Death Guard, this transformation represents not a loss, but an evolution. He has become something greater than what he was, more capable of spreading Nurgle's gifts, more resilient in the face of the enemy, more perfectly embodying the eternal cycle of decay and rebirth that defines their existence. The experience of existence. To understand what drives Death Guard Hellbrutes to not merely endure, but embrace their state, we must attempt to comprehend what their moment-to-moment existence actually feels like. This is challenging for beings who experience reality through biological senses and linear consciousness, but the attempt is necessary if we are to grasp the philosophical framework that sustains these warriors through millennia of transformed existence. From the outside, a Death Guard Hellbrute appears to be a shambling horror, a walking blasphemy against both machine and flesh. Its chassis is corroded and overgrown with organic matter. Rust streaks its armor plates. Strange fungal growths sprout from joints and seams. The weapons it carries are as much biological as mechanical, disease spreaders alongside conventional ordnance. It moves with a strange gait that combines mechanical precision with organic fluidity, sometimes lurching forward like a zombie, other times flowing with predatory grace that seems impossible for something so massive. But inside the sarcophagus, the pilot's experience is very different from what observers might imagine. He is not trapped in darkness and isolation, as Hellbrutes from other legions often are. Instead, he exists in a state of heightened awareness, his consciousness spread throughout the Hellbrute systems in a way that makes him more present, more aware of his surroundings than he ever was when confined to biological senses alone. Through the Hellbrute's senses, he perceives the world in ways that normal space marines cannot. He can taste the chemical composition of the air, detect minute variations in temperature and humidity, hear frequencies that biological ears miss, see into spectrums that organic vision cannot access. In one sense, he has lost his human form. In another, he has transcended its limitations. The constant state of decay that permeates his existence is not experienced as deterioration, but as transformation. His flesh within the sarcophagus is always rotting, constantly being consumed by bacteria and parasites and diseases that Nurgle provides. But it is also always regenerating, being renewed by the same processes that destroy it. This cycle of death and rebirth happens on a cellular level, moment by moment, creating a constant state of flux that would drive normal beings mad. But for the Death Guard pilot, this flux is comforting, familiar. It is the same cycle he experienced in his biological body, just more intense, more concentrated. He is not dying, he is becoming. The distinction matters to him even if it would be lost on outside observers. The fusion with machinery adds another layer to this experience. The Hellbrute's mechanical components are not separate from him, but rather extensions of his being. When the Hellbrute's weapon fires, he does not command it to shoot in the way a normal pilot would operate controls. Instead, he wills the weapon to fire in the same way he once willed his finger to pull a trigger, and the weapon responds with the same immediacy. When the Hellbrute's legs move, he does not think about actuators and servos and balance algorithms. He simply moves forward, and the machine obeys as naturally as his biological legs once did. Over time, the distinction between pilot and machine becomes less and less meaningful. He is not operating the Hellbrute. He is the Hellbrute. The chassis is his body. The weapons are his limbs. The armor is his skin. This unity of consciousness comes with costs that would be unbearable to warriors who have not embraced Nurgle's philosophy. When the Hellbrute's armor is breached, the pilot feels it as a wound to his own flesh. When components malfunction or are damaged in battle, he experiences something akin to injury or illness. The constant maintenance requirements of the chassis translate into bodily needs, not unlike hunger or thirst. And because the Hellbrute systems are perpetually decaying thanks to the corruption that permeates them, these sensations are constant. The pilot exists in a state of perpetual low-level discomfort, always aware that something is wrong, that something is failing, that the boundary between functioning and non-functioning is razor-thin and constantly shifting. But again, for the Death Guard, this state is not torturous, but familiar. They have existed with rotting flesh for millennia. They know what it feels like to have organs failing and regenerating simultaneously. They are comfortable with the knowledge that their bodies are unreliable, that they might collapse at any moment, that only Nurgle's gifts keep them animated at all. The Hellbrute's constant state of mechanical decay is simply the same concept applied to a larger scale. Yes, the weapons might jam. Yes, the actuators might seize. Yes, the armor might crack and split. But these are temporary failures, inconveniences, rather than catastrophes. The Death Guard pilot does not panic when systems fail, because he knows they will be repaired or regenerated or simply work around the damage. Resilience through acceptance of impermanence. This is the lesson they have learned so well. Between battles, when the Hellbrute is not needed and is placed in storage, the experience changes but does not become the nightmare of isolation that afflicts Hellbrutes from other legions. Yes, the pilot's connection to external senses is reduced or severed entirely. Yes, he spends long periods in what might appear to be sensory deprivation. But his consciousness remains distributed throughout the Hellbrute systems. He can still feel the slow processes of decay and regeneration happening throughout the chassis. He can sense the passage of time through the accumulation of rust and growth of organic matter. He remains aware of his physical presence, even when unable to interact with the external world. And crucially, he has the patience to endure this state without going mad. The Death Guard have spent centuries or millennia in grinding siege warfare where nothing happened for months at a time. They know how to wait. They understand that patience is its own form of strength. The battlefield role. When the Death Guard Hellbrute is finally deployed, to battle when it shambles forth from transport or deployment zone to engage the enemy, It fulfills a role that is simultaneously practical and symbolic. On the practical level, it serves as a heavy weapons platform and assault unit, providing firepower and close combat capability that supplements the Plague Marines who make up the bulk of Death Guard forces. Hellbrutes are typically armed with a mix of ranged weapons like multi-melters, plasma cannons, or heavy bolters, combined with close combat weapons like power fists, plague claws, or massive hammers. This armament allows them to engage targets at multiple ranges, making them versatile additions to any force. Their thick armor and considerable size make them resilient enough to advance under fire, drawing enemy attention away from more vulnerable units while absorbing punishment that would destroy lesser war machines. But Death Guard Hellbrutes offer more than just firepower and durability. They serve as mobile sources of contagion, spreading Nurgle's blessings wherever they go. The very presence of a Death Guard Hellbrute on the battlefield begins to corrupt the surrounding environment. The diseases that permeate its chassis leak out into the air, creating clouds of infection that sicken enemy troops. The organic growths that cover its armor release spores that take root in soil and spread rapidly. The fluids that drip from its joints and seams contain bacteria and viruses engineered by Nurgle himself, capable of infecting entire populations if given time to spread. Simply by existing near enemy positions, the Hellbrute weakens defenders, making them more susceptible to the Plague Marines who follow in its wake. This battlefield role resonates deeply with Death Guard Hellbrutes because it allows them to continue serving Nurgle's purpose in the most direct way possible. They are not just killing enemies, they are transforming the battlefield itself into one of Nurgle's gardens. Every step they take spreads disease. Every enemy they slay becomes potential breeding ground for new plagues. Every world they fight on is marked by their presence, left subtly or overtly changed by the corruption they carry. This is meaningful work, purposeful existence, the continuation of what they did as Plague Marines, just on a larger and more impactful scale. The pilot within the Hellbrute can feel the contagion spreading, can sense through his enhanced perception how the environment is changing, and takes satisfaction in this contribution to Grandfather Nurgle's great work. The Death Guard tactical doctrine has always emphasized patience and inexorable advance, and Hellbrutes fit perfectly into this approach. They do not rush forward in reckless charges like the war engines of the World Eaters. They do not employ complex flanking maneuvers like the vehicles of the Alpha Legion. Instead, they advance methodically, at the same pace as the Plague Marines they support, weathering whatever fire the enemy directs at them. Their resilience is legendary even among Chaos forces. The combination of thick armor, demonic enhancement, and the sheer refusal of Death Guard to acknowledge damage means that these Hellbrutes can absorb amounts of punishment that would cripple or destroy other war machines. Enemy troops often watch in horror as their best anti-armor weapons barely slow the advancing Hellbrute, as shots that should have penetrated its armor merely gouge shallow wounds in corroded plating, as damage that should be catastrophic is simply ignored as the Hellbrute continues its advance. This incredible durability stems partly from the nature of their construction and partly from the mindset of their pilots. The Hellbrutes are built with redundant systems, multiple backups, and an overall design philosophy that assumes components will fail and plans for it. But more importantly, the pilots themselves refuse to acknowledge when they should be incapacitated. A Death Guard Hellbrute that has lost a weapon simply switches to its remaining armament. One with damaged legs drags itself forward on its arms. One with critically damaged sensory systems navigates by instinct and memory. The pilot does not panic when systems fail because failure is expected, is part of the natural order, is simply another manifestation of the decay that permeates all existence. He compensates, adapts, continues fighting until there is literally nothing left that can move or shoot. And even then, his chassis may continue to serve as a source of contagion, its decaying systems releasing plagues even in immobility. In close combat, Death Guard Hellbrutes are particularly terrifying. They lumber into enemy formations with the certainty of walking avalanches, their massive fists crushing vehicles and infantry alike, their plague touch infecting everything they contact. The very act of fighting them spreads disease. Enemy warriors who manage to damage the Hellbrute's armor find themselves sprayed with toxic fluids. Those who strike it in melee combat discover too late that the rust and filth covering its chassis harbor infectious agents that enter through any break in their armor or skin. The Hellbrute's close combat weapons are encrusted with centuries of accumulated disease, each blow delivering not just physical trauma, but also viral and bacterial payloads that begin destroying victims from within, even as they try to continue fighting. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Death Guard Hellbrutes in combat is the sounds they make. Unlike the rage-filled screams of Berserker Hellbrutes, or the tormented wailing of possessed war machines, Death Guard Hellbrutes often laugh as they fight. It is a wet, bubbling sound, distorted by Vox speakers that are half choked with organic matter, but it is recognizably laughter nonetheless. The pilots are genuinely enjoying themselves. They have endured long periods of waiting, long periods where they could not serve Nurgle's cause actively, and now they are free to spread the grandfather's gifts as liberally as possible. They are fulfilling their purpose, living up to the honor that was granted them when they were chosen for internment. The fact that they are taking horrendous damage, that their systems are failing one by one, that they are likely to be destroyed before the battle ends, these things do not diminish their joy. They are serving. That is all that matters. The philosophy of acceptance. At its core, the reason Death Guard Hellbrutes embrace their fate comes down to a philosophical position that is alien to most of the Imperium, and even to many servants of chaos. It is the philosophy of acceptance taken to its logical extreme. Most beings, human or otherwise, spend their existence fighting against unpleasant realities. They resist aging, fear death, struggle against pain and suffering, cling desperately to what they have and what they are. This resistance is natural, perhaps even necessary for survival in many circumstances. But it also creates suffering because reality does not care about our preferences. Things decay, people die, pain is inevitable. Fighting against these facts does not change them. It only makes the experience of them more traumatic. The Death Guard learned this lesson during their transformation into Plague Marines. They fought against the diseases consuming them, struggled to resist Nurgle's influence, refused to accept what was happening to them, and in fighting, they magnified their own suffering 1,000-fold. The pain was unbearable, not just because the diseases were terrible, but because they were trying to resist diseases that could not be resisted. They were struggling against an inevitable transformation, and the struggle itself was torture. Only when Mortarion finally surrendered, when he accepted that they could not win this fight and offered themselves to Nurgle, did the suffering end. The diseases did not go away. The corruption continued. But the pain stopped because they stopped fighting it. This revelation fundamentally reshaped the Death Guard's worldview. They came to understand that resistance itself was the source of their suffering, not the conditions they were resisting. The universe is decay. All things fall apart. Fighting against this truth is like fighting against gravity or trying to hold back the tide. It is a battle that cannot be won, and every moment spent in that battle is wasted energy that could be directed toward more productive ends. Better to accept the truth, embrace the decay, find ways to make it work for you rather than against you. This is Nurgle's great lesson. Acceptance brings peace. Not the peace of an unchanged existence, not the peace of avoiding unpleasant realities, but the peace of ceasing to struggle against them. When a Death Guard warrior is interred within a Hellbrute, he applies this same philosophy to his new condition. Yes, his body has been destroyed. Yes, his flesh is now fused with corrupt machinery. Yes, he will spend eternity in this form, neither fully alive nor properly dead, watching his consciousness slowly change and adapt to his hybrid state. These are facts. they cannot be changed. Fighting against them would be pointless. So instead of fighting, he accepts. He looks at what he has become and says, "This is what I am now. How can I make this serve Nurgle's purpose?" The answer is always the same: by continuing to spread decay, by serving as a weapon in the endless war against those who still cling to false hopes of permanence, by embodying through his own existence the truth that nothing lasts forever, and that trying to preserve what cannot be preserved only creates suffering. This acceptance is not passive resignation. It is not giving up or surrendering to despair. On the contrary, it is an active choice, a deliberate decision to stop wasting energy on futile resistance and instead channel that energy into productive action. The Death Guard, Hellbrute, is not helpless or defeated. He is still a warrior, still capable of contributing to his legion's goals, still able to serve Grandfather Nurgle in meaningful ways. The form he takes has changed, but the core purpose remains the same. He spreads disease, he weakens the enemy, he demonstrates through his mere existence that decay cannot be stopped, only accepted. And in accepting it, in embracing it fully, he becomes stronger rather than weaker. The paradox that confounds those who still fear death: accepting mortality grants a form of immortality. Embracing decay preserves what truly matters. The Death Guard Hellbrute also understands something that loyalist Dreadnoughts and Hellbrutes from other legions do not: that identity is not fixed. The loyalist Dreadnought clings desperately to his memories, his sense of self, his connection to what he once was. This clinging becomes a source of pain as time erodes those memories, as the isolation of centuries or millennia wears away at his personality, as he becomes increasingly disconnected from the chapter he serves. The Berserker Hellbrute rages against his transformation, fighting to remain himself, even as the fusion with machinery destroys whatever coherent identity he once possessed. But the Death Guard Hellbrute recognizes that identity has always been fluid, that the Marine he was 10,000 years ago bears little resemblance to what he became as a Plague Marine, and that the Hellbrute he is now is just another stage in an endless transformation. There is no fixed self to preserve, no core identity that must be protected at all costs. There is only the cycle: decay, death, rebirth, in forms that become less and less recognizable, but are no less valid for their alienness. This fluid conception of identity allows Death Guard Hellbrutes to adapt to changes that would shatter warriors with more rigid self-concepts. When their memories begin to fragment, they do not panic at the loss, but instead focus on the memories that remain, the experiences that matter. When their personalities shift, developing the obsessions and quirks that characterize long-interred Hellbrutes, they accept these changes as natural adaptations to their altered circumstances. When they find themselves thinking in ways that seem alien to what they remember of their former selves, they view this as growth rather than corruption. They are becoming what Nurgle intends them to be, and Nurgle's plans are always wiser than any individual's preferences. Fighting against the transformation would be not just futile, but actually counterproductive, working against the natural order that they have devoted their existence to serving. The gift of timelessness. One of the most profound aspects of the Death Guard Hellbrute's existence is their relationship with time itself. For most beings, time is experienced as a linear progression from past through present to future, with each moment distinct and separate from what came before or after. But the Death Guard have already been granted a twisted form of immortality through Nurgle's gifts. They do not age in any conventional sense. Their bodies decay, but also regenerate in an endless cycle that has persisted for 10,000 years. They have watched empires rise and fall, seen stars be born and die, participated in wars that lasted longer than entire civilizations of normal humans. Their experience of time is fundamentally different from that of mortals, or even from loyalist space marines, who still conceive of their lives as having beginnings and endings. The Hellbrute transformation amplifies this timeless existence. When a Death Guard warrior is interred, he enters a state where the usual markers of temporal progression become meaningless. Between battles, in the darkness of storage, time becomes elastic. Days might feel like years, or years might pass in what seems like moments. Without external stimuli to anchor his perception, without the daily rhythms of biological existence to provide structure, the Hellbrute pilot drifts in a state that is neither sleep nor waking but something in between. He is aware but not actively conscious, present but not engaged, existing but not truly living. For many Hellbrutes, this would be torment, a form of sensory deprivation that drives them increasingly mad with each cycle of awakening and storage. But the Death Guard pilot, with his tremendous patience and acceptance of his condition, finds this timelessness oddly peaceful. He is not waiting for something better. He has no expectations that his condition will improve, or that there is some future state more desirable than his current one. He simply exists, moment by moment, accepting each moment as it comes. When he is awakened for battle, he fights. When he is returned to storage, he waits. There is no anxiety about the future, no regret about the past, only the immediate present, extending infinitely in all directions. This is perhaps the purest expression of Nurgle's philosophy, accepting that there is no progress, no improvement, no ultimate destination. There is only the cycle, repeating forever, and peace comes from ceasing to desire anything other than what is. This relationship with time also means that Death Guard Hellbrutes accumulate experience in ways that even ancient loyalist dreadnoughts cannot match. A loyalist dreadnought might be awoken for a handful of battles each century, carefully preserved in stasis between deployments to prevent the degradation of their consciousness. But Death Guard Hellbrutes, with their resistance to psychological damage and their philosophical acceptance of continuous existence, can be deployed much more frequently. They fight in campaign after campaign, battle after battle, accumulating thousands of years of direct combat experience. This makes them incredibly dangerous opponents despite any mechanical limitations or corrupted systems. They have seen every tactic, encountered every enemy, survived situations that would have destroyed lesser warriors 1,000 times over. Their knowledge is vast, their instincts are honed by millennia of warfare, and their patience means they never rush or make unforced errors. They simply advance, implacable and inevitable, bringing Nurgle's decay to everything they encounter. The timeless nature of their existence also creates a unique bond between Death Guard Hellbrutes and the rest of their legion. When a Hellbrute is awakened and deployed alongside Plague Marines, some of those Marines might have fought beside him when he was still flesh and blood, thousands of years ago. Others might be relatively recent recruits who never knew him in his original form. But this does not matter to the Death Guard. They do not mourn what was lost or wish for things to be different. The Hellbrute is their brother, was their brother, will always be their brother, regardless of what form he takes. They respect his service, value his contributions, and take comfort in his continued presence among them. When Plague Marines march into battle with a Hellbrute lumbering beside them, they are not accompanied by a relic or a piece of equipment, but by a comrade who has fought the same battles they have, who understands their purpose, who shares their acceptance of decay and their devotion to Nurgle. This creates a relationship between Death Guard Hellbrutes and the rest of the Legion that is qualitatively different from what exists in other Chaos warbands or Loyalist chapters. The Hellbrute is not isolated, is not separated from his brothers by his transformation. He remains part of the Legion, integrated into its structure and philosophy, respected for his contribution rather than feared or pitied for his condition. When he speaks through corroded vox speakers, his brothers listen to his counsel. When he fights, they coordinate with him naturally, trusting his experience and judgment. When he falls in battle, they mourn his loss the same way they would mourn any fallen brother, knowing that he served Nurgle faithfully until the end, and that his sacrifice spread the grandfather's gifts to new hosts. The paradox, made manifest. Death Guard Hellbrutes represent perhaps the most perfect embodiment of Nurgle's paradoxical nature that exists in the material realm. They are dead, yet living, their bodies long since destroyed, but their consciousness persisting through sheer refusal to acknowledge defeat. They are machines, yet organic, their mechanical components so thoroughly corrupted and colonized by biological processes that the distinction becomes meaningless. They are relics of what they once were, yet constantly transforming into something new, their forms changing with each passing year as decay and regeneration work in tandem to reshape them. They are sources of entropy, spreading decay wherever they go, yet they themselves are maintained and preserved, kept functional for thousands of years through constant care and Nurgle's gifts. They embody destruction, yet create new forms of life, killing enemies by the thousands while the diseases they carry spawn countless new bacteria and viruses and parasites. This paradox extends to how they are perceived by others. Enemies see walking nightmares, shambling corpse machines that should not be able to function but do anyway, spreading disease and death with every step. Imperial forces often respond with horror and disgust when confronting Death Guard Hellbrutes, unable to comprehend how something so obviously broken and corrupted can still move, still fight, still threaten them. Even other Chaos forces sometimes view Death Guard Hellbrutes with unease, recognizing that what they represent challenges comfortable categories of existence. Is the pilot still alive in any meaningful sense? Is the Hellbrute itself aware, or just a machine being operated by a trapped consciousness? These questions have no satisfying answers because the Death Guard Hellbrute exists in a state that defies clean categorization. But to the Death Guard themselves, there is no paradox, no confusion. The Hellbrute is exactly what he appears to be, a warrior of Nurgle serving his purpose, spreading decay, embodying the eternal cycle. The fact that his form is strange, that he exists in a state that others find uncomfortable or incomprehensible, is irrelevant. He is doing what needs to be done, fulfilling his role in Nurgle's grand design. The discomfort others feel when confronting him is their problem, not his. He has accepted what he is. They have not accepted what they will become. Their horror is just another form of the futile resistance that the Death Guard left behind long ago. This ability to embody contradictions without being destroyed by them is what makes the Death Guard Hellbrute such a potent symbol of Nurgle's philosophy. In the Imperium, contradictions are problems to be resolved. A Space Marine is either alive or dead, honored or punished, functional or destroyed. The categories must be maintained because the Imperium's entire structure depends on rigid classification and hierarchy. But Nurgle teaches that categories are illusions, that all distinctions eventually blur and blend, that trying to maintain clear boundaries is just another form of futile resistance against the universe's natural tendency toward chaos and decay. The Death Guard Hellbrute proves this teaching through his very existence. He is neither one thing nor another, but something that transcends both, and in that transcendence finds a form of terrible freedom. The eternal cycle continues. Perhaps the ultimate reason Death Guard Hellbrutes embrace their fate is that it allows them to continue participating in the cycle that gives their existence meaning. From their perspective, they are not suffering some terrible punishment or enduring a cursed existence. They are serving. They are spreading Nurgle's gifts to those who need them most. They are demonstrating through their actions and their very being that decay cannot be stopped, that acceptance is the only path to peace, that the cycle of death and rebirth will continue forever regardless of how desperately anyone struggles against it. This is their purpose, their calling, their contribution to the universe. The form they take while doing it is ultimately irrelevant. When a Death Guard Hellbrute lumbers onto a battlefield, every step is a statement of faith. I accept decay. I embrace it. I am proof that what you fear most, the loss of your form, the corruption of your flesh, the transformation into something you would not recognize, is not the end. It is a beginning. It is transformation. It is continuation of service through acceptance of change. The enemy soldiers who face him see a monster. His plague marine brothers see a hero, a warrior who has given everything to Nurgle's cause and continues to give even when nothing biological remains to offer. Both perceptions are true because truth, like all things in Nurgle's domain, contains multitudes and contradictions. The Death Guard Hellbrute will fight until his chassis is destroyed beyond all ability to function. Even then, his remains will serve Nurgle's purpose, his corrupted components seeding whatever battlefield he fell upon with the diseases and parasites that made their home in his systems. There is no failure state for a Death Guard Hellbrute, because failure implies an expectation that went unmet, and they have no expectations beyond continuing the cycle. They will decay, they will spread that decay, they will be destroyed, and from their destruction, new life will emerge in forms twisted and shaped by Nurgle's influence. This is the promise, the guarantee, the fundamental truth that makes their existence bearable and even meaningful. In the final analysis, Death Guard Hellbrutes embrace eternal decay because they understand that it is not eternal at all. Nothing is eternal except the cycle itself. Their current form will end just as their previous form ended, just as the form before that ended. But something will persist, will transform, will be reborn in whatever shape Nurgle deems appropriate. This is not horror, but comfort, not punishment, but reward. They have been granted the opportunity to see beyond the illusion of permanence that traps so many beings in cycles of fear and suffering. They know that everything ends, and in knowing this, they have found peace. The Emperor promised his Space Marines eternal glory and service. He lied, as he lied about so many things. Mortals die, glory fades, even the Imperium itself will eventually crumble and fall. But Nurgle never lies. He offers decay, transformation, continuation of the cycle, and he delivers on that promise every time, without exception. The Death Guard. Hellbrute is proof of Nurgle's honesty. He was a warrior. He is still a warrior. He will remain a warrior until his destruction, and even his destruction will serve the warrior's purpose of weakening the enemy. His form has changed beyond recognition, but his essence persists. He has accepted decay and found that acceptance brings not death, but a strange form of life, not ending, but transformation, not isolation, but continued connection to his brothers and his purpose. This is what makes his existence bearable. This is why he does not rage against his fate, but instead embraces it. He has learned the great secret that Nurgle teaches all his children, that the only way to truly live is to accept death, that the only path to peace is through embracing decay, and that in the end, everything returns to the garden where new growth springs from old rot. Conclusion: acceptance as liberation. The Death Guard. Hellbrutes stand as some of the most philosophically complex entities in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. They are walking embodiments of Nurgle's teachings, living proof that acceptance of decay can transform what appears to be a curse into something that serves a greater purpose. While warriors from other legions view Hellbrute internment as punishment worse than death, something to be avoided at all costs, the Death Guard have found a way to make peace with this transformation. They have done so not through delusion or denial, but through genuine philosophical acceptance of what they have become and what they continue to become with each passing moment. Their journey from the Emperor's most resilient legion to Nurgle's most devoted servants taught them that resistance to inevitable change only magnifies suffering. When they stopped fighting the transformation, when they embraced the corruption that was consuming them, they found relief, not despite their condition, but within it. This lesson, learned through unimaginable suffering during their fall to chaos, has served them well in the millennia since. It allows Death Guard warriors who face Hellbrute internment to approach that fate without the terror and despair that characterizes warriors from other legions. They understand that this is simply another transformation, another stage in the endless cycle, another opportunity to serve Grandfather Nurgle in a different form. The Death Guard Hellbrute exists in a state that should be unbearable. Flesh fused with corrupted machinery, consciousness distributed across hybrid systems, perpetual decay balanced against perpetual regeneration, isolation punctuated by brief periods of devastating violence. Yet through their unique philosophy, through the gifts Nurgle has granted them, through their legendary patience and resilience, they endure. More than endure, they find meaning and purpose in their existence. They are spreading decay, weakening the Imperium, proving through their mere existence that Nurgle's truths cannot be denied, no matter how desperately others try to resist them. This gives their lives meaning, makes their sacrifice worthwhile, transforms what could be eternal torment into eternal service. In the grim darkness of the far future, there are many horrors, but perhaps none is as philosophically coherent, as internally consistent, as the Death Guard Hellbrute, who has learned that the only way to be free is to accept bondage, that the only path to peace is through embracing decay, and that in surrendering to the inevitable, one gains a form of power that those still struggling can never comprehend. They are prisoners of flesh and metal, but in a way, they are more free than the loyalist space marines who still believe in the Emperor's lies about eternal glory. They know the truth, they have accepted it, and in that acceptance, they have found their liberation. As these walking tombs of rot and rust stride across battlefields throughout the galaxy, spreading disease with every step, they carry with them Nurgle's ultimate message, that decay is not the end, but transformation, that death is not defeat, but transition, and that only by embracing what we fear most can we find true peace. Whether this message is wisdom or madness depends on one's perspective, but for the Death Guard Hellbrutes, who have lived it for thousands of years, who have found purpose and meaning in their existence despite all the horror it contains, the question is irrelevant. They know what they are, they accept what they have become, and they will continue to serve until their chassis crumbles to dust, knowing that even that dust will carry the seeds of new corruption, new transformation, new beginnings in Nurgle's eternal garden. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the philosophy behind Death Guard Dreadnoughts and their acceptance of eternal decay, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. We explore the lore of Warhammer 40,000 with the depth and respect these stories deserve, examining not just what happens, but why it matters to the characters involved. There are countless more stories to tell, countless more corners of the grimdark future to explore, and your support helps make that possible. Until next time, may you find peace in whatever form that takes in your corner of the galaxy.